Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. We're at the end of chapter 21, and we left Wilbur and Charlotte talking about how Charlotte is saying that she is not feeling well and is not going to be able to make it back home. And Wilbur says, then I will stay right here with you. And Charlotte reminds him the fair is going to be empty. The fairgrounds will soon be empty and deserted, and there will be no one to feed him. Wilbur was in a panic. He raced around and around the pen. Suddenly he had an idea. He thought of the egg sack and 514 little spiders that would hatch in the spring. If Charlotte herself was unable to go home to the barn, at least he must take her children along with him. Wilbur rushed to the front of his pen. He put his front feet up on the top board and gazed around. In the distance, he saw the Arabels and the Zuckermans approaching. He knew he would have to act quickly. "Where's Templeton?" he demanded. "He's in the corner under the straw asleep," said Charlotte. Wilbur rushed over, pushed his strong snout under the rat, and tossed him up into the air. "Templeton!" screamed Wilbur. "Pay attention!" The rat, surprised out of a sudden sleep, looked at first in dazed, then disgusted. "What kind of monkey shine is this?" he growled. "Can a rat catch a wink of sleep without being rudely popped into the air?" "Listen to me," cried Wilbur. "Charlotte is very ill. She has only a short time to live. She cannot accompany us home because of her condition. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary that I take her egg sack with me. I can't reach it, and I can't climb. You're the only one that can get it. There's not a second to be lost. The people are coming. They'll be here in no time. Please, 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 Templeton, climb up and get the egg sack." The rat yawned. He straightened his whiskers. Then he looked up at the egg sack. "So," he said in disgust. "So it's old Templeton to the rescue again, is it? Templeton, do this. Templeton, do that. Templeton, please run down to the dump and get me a magazine clipping. Templeton, please lend me a piece of string so I can spin a web." "Oh, hurry," said Wilbur. "Hurry, Templeton." But the rat was in no hurry. He began imitating Wilbur's voice. "So it's hurry up, Templeton, is it?" he said. "Ho, ho. And what thanks do I ever get for these services? I would like to know. Never a kind word for old Templeton, only abuse and wisecracks and side remarks. Never a kind word for a rat." "Templeton," said Wilbur in desperation, "if you don't stop talking and get busy, all will be lost, and I will die of a broken heart. Please climb up." Templeton lay back in the straw lazily. He placed his forepaws behind his head and crossed his knees in an attitude of complete relaxation. "Die of a broken heart," he mimicked. "How touching. My, I notice that it's always me you come to when in trouble, but I've never heard of anyone's heart breaking on my account. Oh, no, who cares anything about old Templeton?" "Get up," screamed Wilbur. "Stop acting like a spoiled child." Templeton grinned and lay still. "Who made trip after trip to the dump?" he asked. "Why, it was old Templeton. Who saved Charlotte's life by scaring that Arable boy away with a rotten goose egg? Bless my soul, I believe it was old Templeton. Who bit your tail and got you back on your feet this morning after you fainted in front of the crowd? Old Templeton. Has it ever occurred to you that I'm sick of running errands and doing favors? What do you think I am, anyway? A rat of all work?" Wilbur was desperate. The people were coming and the rat was failing him. Suddenly he remembered Templeton's fondness of food. "Templeton," he said, "I will make you a solemn promise. Get Charlotte's egg sack for me. And from now on, I will let you eat first when Larvy slops me. I will let you have your choice of everything in the trough, and I won't touch a thing until you're through." The rat sat up. You mean that?" he said. "I promise, and I cross my heart." "All right, it's a deal," said the rat. He walked to the wall and started to climb. His stomach was still swollen from last night's gorge. Groaning and complaining, he pulled himself slowly to the ceiling. He crept along till he reached the egg sack. Charlotte moved aside for him. She was dying, but she still had strength enough to move a little. Then Templeton bared his long, ugly teeth and began snipping the threads that fastened the sack to the ceiling. Wilbur watched from below. Use extreme care, he said. I don't want a single one of those eggs harmed. This mouth, complained the rat. It's worth the terrible candy. But Templeton worked away at the job and managed to cut the sack adrift and carry it to the ground, where he dropped it in front of Wilbur. Wilbur heaved a great sigh of relief. Thank you, Templeton, he said. I will never forget this as long as I live. Neither will I, said the rat, picking his teeth. I feel as though I had eaten a spool of thread. Well, home we go. Templeton crept into the crate and buried himself in the straw. He got out of sight just in time. Larvae and John Arable and Mr. Zuckerman came along at that moment, followed by Mrs. Arable and Mrs. Zuckerman and Avery and Fern. Wilbur had already decided how he would carry the egg sack. There was only one possible way. He carefully took the little bundle in his mouth and held it in there on top of his tongue. He remembered what Charlotte had told him, that the sack was waterproof and strong. It felt funny on his tongue and made him drool a bit, and of course he couldn't say anything. But as he was being shoved into the crate, he looked up at Charlotte and gave her a wink. She knew he was saying goodbye in the only way that he could, and she knew her children were safe. Goodbye, she whispered. Then she summoned all of her strength, and she waved one of her little front legs at him. She never moved again. The next day, as the Ferris wheel was being taken apart and the racehorses were being loaded in the vans and the entertainers were packing up their belongings and driving away in their trailers, Charlotte died. The fairgrounds were soon deserted. The sheds and the buildings were empty and forlorn. The infield was littered with bottles and trash. Nobody of the hundreds of people that had visited the fair knew that a gray spider had played the most important part of all. No one was with her when she died. Aww. That is the end of chapter 21. And we still have 22. I don't want to leave it at the end like that Charlotte just passed away. That is sad, but she lived a full life, and spiders, that's as long as they live after they have their babies. Most of them pass away. And she knew that was going to happen, and that's kind of like what we call the circle of life, isn't it, boys and girls? But Wilbur took the sack with him back to the farm. Do you think he'll be able to take care of that spider sack and keep those babies safe until next spring? Because they all winter long, they stay in that sack and grow, and then they hatch in the spring. So maybe this next chapter is going to be about next spring when the spiders all kind of start coming out. I hope so. We'll see.